Hello everyone and welcome to our webinar on the UKCA mark and what you need to know. I'd just like to point out that all information in this presentation was correct at the time of writing, but this could be subject to change depending on what the government states, and that was from the 7th of December. I'll just run through the housekeeping rules with you. If you'd like to submit your questions through the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, we'll answer as many questions as possible during the Q&A section at the end, but any unanswered questions will be addressed via email. Please note that we do capture all your questions. For the best viewing experience, we recommend using a wired internet connection. Close any programs or browser sessions running in the background, as webinars are quite bandwidth intensive. An on-demand version of this webinar will be available once the webcast has been completed, and it will be shared with you via email to all the registrants. Where possible, at the end of the webinar, if you could please complete the poll questions to help us understand how to improve for future webinars. So the presenters today were joined by James McGurk, our Managing Director, Rob Hinchcliffe, Joe Pincus and Bernard Hickling. If we just go into the next slide, I'll just run through the agenda with you. So we're going to look at the background to Brexit, what the UKCA mark is, when to use the UKCA mark and what products does it apply to, how to use the UKCA mark and what about CE marking and SGS services. I'll now pass you over to James, our MD. Over to you, James.
Thank you, Freddie. Good afternoon, everyone. Whilst the UK formally left the European Union on the 31st of January 2020, a transition period until midnight Central European time on the 31st of December 2020 was agreed. This transition period allows the continued application of rules and regulations, including those surrounding the conformity marking and assessment of products. Although both the UK and the EU have indicated a willingness to work to a negotiated agreement in relation to the regulatory regime after the transition period, plans were also implemented for the introduction of a UK conformity assessment, UKCA mark, in the event that a deal was not reached. As the time to reach such a deal is running out, both the UK government and the EU are advising manufacturers to consider the implications of a no-deal scenario on their business activities. During this webinar, we'd like to update you on the latest guidance around the UKCA mark and better help you understand the implications for your businesses. I'll hand you over to my colleague Bernard Hickling, who will give you further insight into the UKCA mark. Bernard.
Okay, thank you, James. Okay, we'll start off with what is the UKCA mark? Well, it will replace the existing CE mark, or it's the UK's equivalent version of the CE mark for use within the UK. All UK-based notified bodies, or NBs, will lose their status on the 31st of December this year, as in the existing notified body certificates that are in existence will no longer be valid in Europe. They will, however, remain valid for UKCA marking until they either expire or the 1st of January 2021. 2021. And the UKCA mark is mandatory from the 1st of January 2021. The UKCA mark will be required on products subject to the UK equivalent legislation, to all of the EU directives or regulations, or commonly referred to as new approach directive regulations that require CE marking. Existing UK notified bodies will become approved bodies to issue certificates that will be valid for UKCA marking. So there will be a one-year transition period from CE to UKCA marking. And for Northern Ireland, the CE mark will continue to be used. And there are further slides later on to clarify exactly what we mean by that. Next slide, please. The products covered by the UKCA mark are quite extensive, and as I say, generally they're referred to as the new approach directives. and it includes civil explosives, construction products, gas appliances, and so on. I'm not going to read out the full list, but the most common ones: low voltage electrical equipment, measuring equipment, medical devices, machinery, non-automatic weighing equipment, PPE, personally protective equipment, ATEX toys, and restriction of hazardous substances, etc. Next slide, please. So going from right to left, if you're currently CE marking your product, then you will be using, or you have to use from now, an EU 27 notified body or a European notified body. And that means that you will be placing your product either into the EU market, in the EU 27 countries, or alternatively, you can place them on the GB market until the 31st December, 1st of January, from the 1st of January until the 31st of December 2021. So after the next 12 months, so not this Christmas, next Christmas, that's when that will cease to apply. If you're applying the UKCA mark, then you will be using a UK approved body, and you will be placing your product onto the GB market only. So we're working that the other way around, from left to right. If you're placing your product into the EU market, you must use CE marking, and if you're placing your product onto the GB market, then you will be using a UK approved body and marking it with UKCA. But that applies for the next 12 months. Next slide, please. So the situation gets much simpler then after the transition period, because if you're placing your product into the EU market, you need to use an EU 27 notified body, and you are CE marking your product. If you're placing your product onto the GB market, you will be using a UK approved body, and you will be UKCA marking your product. So there's no crossover between the two after the next 12 months. So from the 1st of January 2022. Well, next slide, please. And at that point, I'll hand over to my colleague, Jo, to continue.
Thank you, Bernard. Good afternoon, everybody. UKCA approved bodies will replace notified bodies. In the UK, approval bodies will be implemented from the 1st of January 2021. The UK will mirror current EU CE marking legislation and existing harmonised standards. These will be known as designated standards in the UK. Manufacturers can place CE marked products via an EU notified body onto the UK market until the end of 2021. However, after the 1st of January 2022, manufacturers must obtain UKCA marking via a UK approval body in addition to CE marking for Europe in order to sell in the UK and Europe. The process of certification and testing will remain the same, with submission of applications, contracts raised, and technical reviews conducted. Please note, this will include annual surveillance audits, if appropriate, in the same way as it does now. Next slide, please. CE marking within the EU. For many of the new approach directives, SGS has an EU notified body. For example, SGS Finland for personal protective equipment and SGS Portugal for CPR. This will allow us to continue offering our services with the least amount of disruption to manufacturers for CE marking. SGS is ready to continue testing and certification under the UKCA mark. The UKCA mark is the United Kingdom's equivalent of the current European CE mark. From the 1st of January 2022, after a one-year transition period, manufacturers who wish to place products on the UK market will require to be certified via a UK approval body to obtain the UKCA mark. The CE mark will no longer be accepted in the UK. Next slide, please. UKCA marking, what this means. To be clear, this stands for United Kingdom Conformity Assessment Mark. The first point to note is that testing should not be affected by the UK leaving the EU community. SGS accept test reports globally from any accredited ISO 17025 laboratory with a required test method covered with their accredited scope. This is done per test method, not for the lab as a whole. Labs with test methods accredited to ISO 17025 will work under the ILAC, or the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation. For example, you may know UKCA in the UK or CNAF in China. Other countries will have other accreditation bodies. Certification will be based on the same principles as the current CE marking. Current new approach directives and regulations will be mirrored by the UK, as well as the existing standards and product categorization. For example, CPR AVCP systems and PPE categories 1, 2, and 3. Next slide, please. UKNI mark specifically for Northern Ireland. The UKNI marking is a new conformity marking for products placed on the market in Northern Ireland, which have undergone mandatory third-party conformity assessment by a body based in the UK. UKNI marking is never applied on its own. It always accompanies an EU conformity marking. To be clear, the UKNI marking will not be recognised on the EU market. Next slide, please. This next slide is a table of the accepted Northern Ireland markings for various markets. I will talk you through it. If you have manufactured goods being placed on the market in Northern Ireland using an EU conformity assessment body, then the accepted markings are the CE mark. If you have manufactured goods being placed on the market in Northern Ireland using a UK-based body, then the accepted markings are the CE mark and the UKNI mark. If you have manufactured goods being placed on the GB market until the end of 2021, then the accepted markings are the UKCA or CE mark. If you have manufactured goods placed on the GB market from the 1st of January 2022, then the accepted markings are the UKCA mark. If you're placing qualifying Northern Ireland goods on the GB market under unfettered access, then the accepted markings are the CE or the CE and UKNI marking. If you have manufactured goods being placed on the EU market, then the accepted markings are the CE mark. Next slide, please. When to use the UKNI marking? This would be when you are placing certain goods, mostly those goods subject to the CE marking, on the Northern Ireland market from the 1st of January 2021. Your goods require mandatory third-party conformity assessment, and you're planning to use a UK body to carry out those conformity assessments from the 1st of January 2021. You will not be able to use the UKNI marking if either of the following apply. You are placing the goods on the market in the EU, or you are planning to use an EU body to carry out conformity assessments. Next slide, please. I'll now hand over to Rob Hinchcliffe. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Jo. Hello, everyone. I'd just like to talk to you about the application of the UKCA mark and how it is applied to products. The mark may only be applied to products in accordance with the specific regulations which apply to that product by the manufacturer or their authorised representative. What that means essentially is that the only people who can apply the mark should be the bodies or the companies that are responsible for the compliance of the product. If you are sure that the product is compliant to the regulations, then you can apply the mark to the product itself. The mark must not be applied to any product which does not fall within the scope of at least one regulation which requires the application of the mark. And by applying the UKCA mark, the manufacturer or their authorised representative is taking responsibility for the compliance of the product with all applicable legislation, which means essentially that you should not apply the UKCA mark unless you are 100% sure that the product is fully compliant to the regulation or regulations that are required under it. The mark will generally be required to be applied to the product itself unless the regulations allow it to be applied to the packaging or accompanying documentation. Again, what that means is essentially that the mark should be placed on the product itself unless there are mitigating reasons for it not to be able to be put on there, which would usually be for size, shape, or aesthetic reasons only. The mark may be reduced or enlarged as long as the proportion and ratio remain the same, and the minimum size of the mark is generally 5 millimeters. It must be applied securely and in a way that its meaning may not be misconstrued. Essentially, it must be a permanent marking on the product itself, if not on the packaging. Manufacturers may choose to mark both the CE and UKCA marks on a product as long as both the UK and EU compliance conditions are met. Dual marking is allowed, but again, this can only be done if the product meets requirements in both marketplaces. As long as it has done so, the CE and UKCA mark can be put onto the same product. Next slide, please. SGS run a number of services to assist reviewing these processes. As an approved body for the UKCA mark, we can help you with the required conformity assessment procedures that will allow you to attach the UKCA marking for the below areas. I won't go through them all, but most of the main key core areas that we do cover, including PPE, LVD, EMC, the RED directives, and ATEX, amongst several. We also assist in other areas and with other product areas that require the UKCA marking. So even though we might not be an assessment body in these, we can also assist with medical devices, construction products, and the toy safety regulations, products that need to carry the UKCA mark still, and we have services that can assist in those processes with those particular areas. Just to emphasize that testing is not affected. You don't have to test in the UK for the UK market or test in Europe for the European market. Testing is not affected by any of this, and therefore we can offer testing services globally to all of these areas where the labs are capable of conducting that testing. Next slide. At which point I'd like to pass you back to James, who'll just do a quick summary before we enter the Q&A session.
Okay, thanks Rob, and thank you all for taking the time out to attend this webinar today. I trust the team has offered you some valuable information on a subject matter which can be very confusing and understandably concerning, no more so than the context of these already difficult times. Whilst there is still some degree of uncertainty over Brexit and whether a deal will be reached quite literally before the 11th hour, the 31st of December 2020, it is clear that businesses need to start preparing for a scenario where the UKCA mark will come into full effect on January the 1st, 2021. As highlighted by the team, SGS can offer solutions to these imminent changes and ensure your continued access to markets both in the UK and the EU. We have specialists across all industries with a wealth of knowledge and experience who are here to help you during these challenging and uncertain times, offering continued CE marking as well as providing the new UKCA mark. All of our experts on the call today and those within the wider SGS network are available to help support your business to plan, prepare, and be best positioned for change. Keep safe, everyone, and I'll hand you back to Freddie, to start the Q&A session. Freddie.
Brilliant, thank you for that, James. Just before I move on to the Q&A session, I just want to advise that we've not actually got a medical devices specialist on the line today. But as the transition period and processes for the medical device market is different, we've recently run a dedicated webinar to update people on this. So we've also included the link to that, so that'll be sent out to you as well. So moving on to the questions, we've got one here. Can CE and UKCA have dual labelling?
The answer to that question is yes, as long as the conditions have been met in both Europe and the UK for compliance.
Brilliant, thanks for that, Rob. Got another one here. We've heard that for apparel, ordinary garments, we will need to include a UK supplier's name and address from January 21 in the care label. Since the UK will not be an EEA country, it should have the importer's name, but does it have to be from January 2021?
I'll answer that one again. For apparel, for non-CE marked products, there's currently no requirement for the majority to have an address label on. If you are currently selling products which require an address label, then you will need to continue to do so, and that address will need to be for the EU and for the UK, depending on which market you're selling in. If you are not currently selling a product that requires by law an address on it, there is no change to that law going forward.
Perfect, thank you very much. The next question is, if we currently distribute a product into both the UK and EU, but our EU declaration of conformity is only in English, would we need to translate this into a different EU language?
I would comment that that is currently the accepted practice for CE marking. Of course, if you are UKCA marking in the future, then that would only be valid for product in the UK anyway. So that wouldn't apply then. If you're delivering the product into Europe, then it must be CE marked. So the same accepted practice would still apply.
Brilliant, thanks, Bernard. Next question, do you have a list of EU CE marking directives and comparable UKCA marking regulations?
Let me answer that one, Freddie. So we do, and we can provide these after the webinar.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Next question. As a designated standard is very important for all of us, do we have any official document stating the EU harmonised standards will be mirrored for the designated standards?
Let me take that one again, Freddie. So there is a list of designated standards that's been published by the UK government, and they are available online. So we can share the links with the teams, and we can share that going forward.
Thank you. Next one, going on to, are there going to be new certificates issued which instead of saying they allow the CE logo to be fixed, they will say that they allow the UKCA logo to be affixed?
Well, the UK government have said that they will accept existing notified body certificates that certainly UK notified bodies have issued up until they've issued as notified bodies, as in up until the end of this year, that are still valid for the next 12 months of this transition period. We've no need to reissue those certificates. So we, as SGS, we've got no plan to reissue all certificates across the board until either that certificate has expired or the end of next year, whichever is the sooner. And at that point, we will then reissue a UKCA marking certificate.
Okay. Next one we've got, can we ship into Europe during 2021 using our current CE mark and our UK address?
I'll take that one. No, you can't. From the 1st of January, if it's got a CE mark on it, must have an EU address attached to that CE mark.
Thank you very much. If you self-certify the CE mark, does this continue for the UKCA?
Yes, basically anything that can be self-certified now can also be self-certified for the UKCA mark.
Thank you. Could you explain what unfettered access means?
I'm not sure of the dictionary definition, but basically it means without hindrance. So they've got access with continued access without hindrance or without change because of this change.
Thank you, Bernard. Does SGS accept accredited lab reports as used for CE marking to be able to apply a UKCA mark for the same product?
I can take that one. Yes, there's no change to the testing side of things.
Brilliant, thank you, Joe. Next question, excuse me. For products that are CE marked but can be self-assessed, e.g. toys, will the UK-based companies still be able to self-assess and complete the DOC for products to be sold into Northern Ireland and EU as well as the UK?
Yes, a UK company can still arrange for that. They will need, as I say, need to have an EU address attached. So they will need to either appoint an authorised representative or use a European office, either of their own or of an importer, to take the responsibility and compile the technical file and produce the DOC. But a UK company can still organise that for the EU and Northern Ireland. Yes, that's fine.
Oh, cool, thank you, Rob. Next question, will the UKCA regulations allow a manufacturer to place a UKCA mark only in the user interface instead of on the product label?
Let me take that one, Freddie. I think the question is around the physical size of the product. So if you can't, similar to CE marking, if you can't apply the marking on the product, then certainly there has to be the marking in the instructions for use, as well as on let's say, and also we need to cover on the DOC. Yeah, so it's similar to the CE marking where, let's say, the product is too small to mark.
Excellent, thank you. Next question is, will SGS accept CPR test results for EN 50575 from EU27 notified body to issue a UKCA mark?
I don't think we have a CPR expert on, but I would say that because we aren't a notified body for CPR, I don't believe. So I'm not sure we'll be able to answer that one.
Well, yes, we are in the sense of we are currently a notified body and we will become an approved body for CPR. But going forwards, we will no longer be a notified body, and therefore we will not be able to issue CE marking certificates for that standard because it's not within our accredited scope.
Okay, thank you very much. What is the UK legislation of the WEEE directive?
Let me answer that, Freddie. It is the Waste, Electric and Electronic Equipment Regulations that was put in law, which is 2013, and that was put in law on the 1st of January 2014.
Brilliant, thank you. Next question, if importing a product, when is it classed as being placed on the market?
The answer to that is when it's got a contract to be sold. So when the contract has been established for sale, that's when it's technically been sold. So even though it may not have moved, it may still be in the manufacturer's warehouse or even in a different country. It's when technically it's been sold. So when there's a contract for sale and there's a contractual obligation there, that's when it's technically sold or placed on the market.
Oh, brilliant. Cheers, Bernard. Next question. What are the requirements for exporting to the EU? Do we need a representative stroke importer to hold the technical file within the EU?
The answer to that one is yes. If you are selling into the EU, you must have either an authorised representative or a company based in the EU that will hold the technical file and take responsibility for compliance there, yes.
Thank you very much. Got a question. What about suppliers of components into the UK for PED products like pipes, flanges, welded components for final assembly in the UK?
I don't think we've got anybody on the call, Freddie, for PED. So maybe we can take that offline.
No problem. We'll get that one emailed out. Are there any changes to self-certification?
No, it's exactly the same as it is currently for CE marking.
Perfect. Next question. If the CE, oh, sorry, that was just disappeared on me. If an electrical product has valid CE test reports and we issue the EC DOC now, could we place a UKCA mark and issue the UKCA DOC after the 1st of January next year?
To answer this question, it all comes down to the contract to say, has it been placed in the market? So that is a critical thing about having it placed on the market, whether that's a written contract or a verbal contract.
Thank you very much. What about becoming a CE approved? Sorry, it's disappeared again. Is there a UK version of the construction products? Sorry about this, the questions keep disappearing on me. I think we're getting too many through at once. Let me just move down to the bottom. What do you mean by an authorised person as the importer, or can it be a company representative from a branch of the EU or the UK?
There is such a thing called an authorised representative. There are certain bodies, there are certain companies based in Europe who set themselves up as authorised representatives who can act on your behalf to hold the technical file and take responsibility for compliance. Some of them will have different services, but they can act on your behalf, and their address will appear on the product where yours would normally. They can be found, there's lists for different types available across Europe.
Okay, thank you very much, Rob. What is the UK equivalent of the ROHS directive?
The restricted, the ROHS directive is the 2012 ROHS regulations that's been put into UK law.
Okay, I've got another question about CE marks. Can we use in effect 2 CE marks on our packaging, i.e. CE 0120 and CE 1029 in a transition period until we obtain the UKCA?
Yeah, I'll take that one. I'm just rereading that question. Can we use, in effect, 2 CE marks on our packaging?
That's right, yes.
Transition period. If you've got CE 1029 for Portugal, then you'd be better off using just that, because CE marking is valid in, or will be accepted as valid in the UK for the next 12 months anyway. So you're better off just using the Portugal one, is the answer to that.
Okay. What if you have room on a product for either a CE or UKCA mark, but not both?
Then you'd have to produce 2 labels, one for the UK market and one for the EU market. If you're selling in the EU, you must have a CE mark, and if you're selling in the UK, you must have a UKCA mark. So you either produce 2 separate labels, or you try and find room to put both on one label.
Okay. When finding an importer or EU rep, is there a template or list of responsibilities we should send to them when asking them to take on the role?
The responsibilities of an authorised representative and so on are stated in the UK websites, the UK government websites.
Perfect, thank you. If I sell a product in the UK, Northern Ireland and EU markets, I need to have 3 marks on it, even if I self-declare conformity.
No, if it's a self-certified product, you wouldn't be using the UKNI mark. The UKNI mark is only used where you've had a conformity assessment done by a UK body. If you are selling in Europe, Northern Ireland and the UK a self-certified product, it should just have the UKCA and CE mark on only.
Thank you. After the 1st of January 2021, do we have to create two? Sorry, questions keep jumping about. After the 1st of January 2021, do we have to create two separate DOCs to sell in both Europe and the UK? Or would it be acceptable to create a merged DOC reference?
No, you would have to have two separate ones.
Two separate ones, no problem. Is there a UKCA drawing available showing applicable sizing?
The actual PDF versions of the precise UKCA marking are on the UK government website.
Yeah, there's a specific page there for Freddie for them to so basically if they go to the government website, there's an actual page set up with the full markings on there and the illustrations that they can take off there to use.
Thanking you. If there is a deal and it's your understanding that the UKCA mark will still apply, will products still require testing by a notified body and UK approved body?
If there is a deal, then it depends on the detail that's in that deal. With no insight as to know what may or may not be in a deal if it's going to happen.
No problems, just keeping our eyes on the news. What are the requirements for a DOC for the UK?
Exactly the same as the requirements for DOC for the EU. Again, other than the fact that the references to some of the legislation may change to be specific to the UK harmonised versions, and the fact it will be a UK DOC rather than an EC DOC, it's exactly the same format.
Thank you. Is a technical file required to register a product for the UKCA mark?
I think it depends which scheme you are complying with. It really, as things are now, some schemes do need full technical files and others which need to be sent to the notified body, and but everybody needs a technical file of some sort. So as it is now.
Thank you, Joe. Will the UKCA mark replace the compliance mark on aerosols marketed in the UK?
Can you repeat that question, please, Freddie?
Of course. Will the UKCA mark replace the compliance mark on aerosols marketed in the UK?
In terms of the CE marking on those products, yes. So if they're currently CE marked, which aerosol products would be, then yes, it will be replaced with the UKCA mark.
Thank you. Will it be mandatory in 2022? Excuse me, I've lost this one again. Will it be mandatory in 2022 to go through a UK approved body for products which are currently EU self-assessed to be allowed to apply the UKCA mark?
Self-certification by its very nature is something you can do yourself. You don't need to go through a conformity body to get that. As I say, ultimately, whatever you're doing currently for the CE mark can be mirrored exactly the same for the UKCA mark. So if you're currently just self-certifying products and you're not using conformity assessments or notified bodies, then you don't need to start now or after January the 1st, 2022 for the UKCA mark. It will be exactly the same process as to whatever you are doing at this moment in time.
Thank you. Does an online retailer based in the UK need to apply a Northern Ireland address to products sold in Northern Ireland? Anyone pick that one up? what we'll do with that one, I will get that one answered via email. I'll make sure that one's sorted. We'll find someone that can answer it. Another question. For CE marking in Europe after Brexit, do you need a physical presence, or is it simply having a virtual address?
It'll need to be a business address. So essentially, as long as it's an address that is linked to your business or is set up as a separate economic operator, it's fine. But yeah, I mean, it can't be just an address plucked from nowhere or a PO box or something. It has to be some form of business address, whether that's the address of the authorised representative, the importer, office that you've set up yourselves, but it has to be a physical address.
Okay. Let's have a look. Can I ask about the UK EU notified bodies for testing to be compliant in both GB and Northern Ireland? Do we need to use a UK notified testing lab for UKCA testing and EU notified bodies for Northern Ireland testing?
No.
Wherever the testing is, the testing comes outside of this, and the situation hasn't changed for testing, so it would need to still be accredited testing under any of the ILAC schemes to use this for your certification. So that it just hasn't changed, and testing's outside.
But there's no geographical situation there in terms of restrictions. So if they can carry it out somewhere in the world that's accredited to carry out that testing, they can do that. You don't have to do UKCA mark testing. Doesn't have to be done in the UK. Just the certification that has to be done in the UK.
Well, thank you. Can SGS UK be the local representative?
I think I'm assuming they're referring to authorised representative, and no, the authorised representative has to be someone who's based in Europe.
Fantastic.
I'm assuming for the CE mark in terms of what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the company name and address on the commercial invoice acceptable as a UK importer?
Say that again, Freddie, sorry.
Is the company name and address on the commercial invoice accepted as the UK importer?
Yes, as long as it's the company that is responsible for compliance to the UK market, then that's absolutely fine.
Thank you. When does a company self-certify, and when do you need a conformity assessment by a notified body?
Different
That
product.
depends on the scheme, but the requirements are exactly the same as they are now for CE requirements.
So some products do. So at the moment, what you have is basically some of the product areas that we've discussed can be self-certified and some can't. So toys, for example, are a product area that you can self-certify. That will remain the same for UKCA. The majority of electrical products can be self-certified. But most other product areas require conformity assessments.
Thank you. We manufacture to CE under CPR, but for the UK market only. Can we just apply for UKCA from the 1st of January? Or do we need to be reassessed under CPR by an approved body?
If you're self-certifying, then no, you don't. If you are using an approved body or current notified body because you're using a CE marking certificate, then you will need to, that existing CE marking certificate, if it's approved by an approved UK approved body, then that will still be valid throughout the whole of next year. At which time, at the end of next year, you need to convert it over to using the UKCA mark. And again, you will have to use a UK approved body and get a certificate from them for that.
Thank you. Can you have the CE mark on the product and the UKCA mark in the user interface?
I think I'll take that one, Freddie. I think to answer that question, it will come down to Really, when you are placing it on the market as in the time frame, if it's between next year, yeah, you can apply the CE mark as well as the UKCA mark, and then after the end of December, going into the 1st of January 2022, then it's only going to be the UKCA mark.
Thank you very much. For testing standards to be used and written on test reports, is it only BS-EN standards accepted? What if it's DINEN or ISEN?
I think it depends which standards the questioner is referring to, because a lot of standards are the same, in that, for example, on toys, we've seen a lot of people getting confused about EN71 and all the different European versions, which are all absolutely identical in their content. So yeah, there's a lot of confusion about that, but it is all just one method, but they may be referring to other standards, but I know that there's been confusion on toys for certain. So EN71 has all the different European versions and they are all identical.
Thank you, Jo. Will the extended application rules currently used for CE marking of construction products also be used for the UKCA mark?
I'll take that one offline and reply to it, because I'm not sure of the answer here and now in terms of what the definition of what's meant by the extended rules.
No problem, thanks Bernard. Does the UKCA mark need the notified body number on it when using a UK authorised body?
Yes, if they're using ourselves in terms of SGS as an approved body, currently we are the notified body for 0120 for issuing CE marking certificates. In the future, when we become an approved body, the number stays the same. So we will become an approved body, or AB 0120.
Thank you.
I think there's different numbers for different schemes, though, I believe, because yes, that's...
Yes, that's true. Sorry, Jo.
No, that's true for PPE as well, 0120, but I think some of the E&E products will have a different notified body number, maybe.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's correct. For example, ATEX, UK EX will be 1180.
Yeah, so exactly the same as it is now, but all the notified bodies in the UK will become the approval bodies for the UKCA marking. So the actual number that you've been used to using will be the same number to identify the UK approval body.
Could we discuss temporary versus permanent UKCA marking and timing?
In theory, no, because the law states that it should be permanently marked. In practice, it depends on any flexibility within enforcement bodies, but obviously we don't know what that's going to be like. So, but in theory, no, that the law states that it should be a permanent marking.
Thank you very much. Another question. Did you say we needed a distributor and have their name and address on the product to sell it in the EU from the 1st of January 2021?
As long as that distributor is willing to take responsibility for the compliance of the product and is happy to have their name on there, then yes, but they would have to hold the technical file for the CE mark. So you'd have to have an agreement with them that they would be willing to take that level of responsibility. They would, in essence, become the importer rather than distributor.
Thank you very much. Can the UKCA mark be applied now through a UK approved body?
It would be meaningless to apply it now, because it doesn't come into effect until the 1st of January 2021.
Thank you. Are there any restrictions on when the UKCA mark can be used in the user interface instead of applied to the product?
the rules don't change in terms of where the mark should be applied or how it should be applied. It should be applied to the product if at all possible. If it's impossible due to its size or the product size and so on, then it should be in the accompanying information, whether it's the declaration performance or the user instructions, etc. As in, grains of sand in terms of aggregates, you can't label every grain of sand. It's just physically, totally impractical and impossible. But therefore, the equivalent UKCA marking should be in the accompanying information.
Thank you. Next question. Does the DOFC need the address of the notified body and the address of an authorised representative? I assume the two parties are not the same.
The DOC, which I'm assuming they're referring to the DOC should have the same name and address on as the product is carrying. So again, whoever is taking responsibility for compliance of the product, that name and address is the same one that should appear on the product and the DOC.
Okay. What is the advice to retailers importing branded products from non-UK countries?
Exactly the same advice that we're giving to everybody else, really, that the responsibility lies with whoever imports the product into Europe. So if you're bringing the product into the EU and you are happy to take responsibility, then it's your name and address that will appear on the product and you hold the technical file. If the company that is selling you the product from outside the EU has an EU office and they're happy for their address to appear on it, they can do so, but somebody's EU address has got to appear with that CE mark. So either the retailer or the importer or the distributor or the manufacturer has to decide amongst themselves who's going to take that responsibility and whose address will appear on it.
Thank you. The second slide stated the UKCA mark is mandatory from the 1st of January 21. When does it have to be on UK products? I thought it was optional until 2022.
It's not optional, it is mandatory from the 1st of January 2021. However, as an alternative to that is that the UK government will still accept CE marking if the product is CE marked until the end of next year.
Thank you very much. Is there any requirement regarding the UK importer's address? We've heard that this address can actually be mentioned on any document accompanying the product. Could you confirm, please?
Again, the law states that the address should appear on the product if possible. Much like the CE mark, the address should appear ideally on the product itself. Again, if size or shape dictates it's impossible to do so, then the address can be put on accompanying documentation or packaging, but it should appear on the product.
Thank you. When can SGS begin to issue UKCA certificates based on IECEX test reports issued by an EU notified body?
We can begin doing that as from the beginning of January 2021.
Thank you very much. We will go for, with dual marking, would you need to label both notified bodies?
Yes.
Nice and short and sweet. How is the new regulation enforced? What if some manufacturers don't comply to the requirements?
The enforcement authorities for the UK are the trading standards officers. That's not the same elsewhere, but certainly for CE marking, it's the trading standards, and it will be the same for the UKCA marking.
Thank you. For CE marking in Europe after Brexit, do you need a physical presence, or is it simply having a virtual address? I think we've had one similar to that, haven't we?
Yeah, we had the similar question earlier. Yes, it should be a business address, essentially.
We import import smart batteries from the USA, which are currently CE marked, is it up to the USA manufacturer to now include the UKCA mark?
Let me take that one free. Again, it's as similar as that if they are selling into the UK, then they will require the UKCA mark. Yeah, so they will have to adapt their markings as well as their declaration of conformities to cover the UKCA mark.
Thank you very much. How will you be able to get a UKCA mark products if there's no notified body approved in the UK for that product? I.e. currently there's no notified body in the UK for fireworks.
We don't know the answer to that one at the moment.
No, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, we don't know the answer to that one at the moment because you know, that answer is yet still to be answered.
No problem. If your product is certified by SGS Finland, would this cover for the UKCA mark as well, or would you still need to apply for the UKCA mark as a UK body?
If it's approved by SGS Finland and it'll be for the CE marking regulations, then you will have to apply for a UKCA mark.
Thank you. Who's responsible for the importer obligations if a product is being imported from the EU but sold in the UK by a department store?
Whoever imports it, so whoever is classed as the importer is taking responsibility for that. So if it's being sold directly to a retailer and the retailer becomes the importer, they have to take responsibility.
Thank you. I think we've just about got enough time for one more. Does the EU address for CE marking need to be in the country of sale, or can it be anywhere in the EU?
Anywhere in the EU.
Where? Yeah.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Well, that's it. We're just about out of time, so we've still got quite a few more questions that we've not had a chance to answer. So we'll make sure that all these are captured and emailed out to you all. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. The questions have been brilliant, and thank you very much to our presenters for your part. Hope everyone has a wonderful Christmas and New Year, and we hope to see you all soon. Bye bye.